And welcome, America, to another edition of Lessons from the Front. I am your host, Todd Boating, with Carry the Load. So excited to get on to this topic. But before I do, I want to remind everybody about how this whole thing started. And it's all based on statistics. So if you stop and think about it, only 1% of America at most actively serves us in uniform. And that's by way of the military, first responders, communities, 1%. Then if you look at the National Census Bureau, it says only 24% of Americans actively volunteer. That's 1 out of every 4 Americans is serving their fellow man. Just imagine, America, if we were able to take those numbers and flip it, and now 3 out of every 4 is serving their fellow man. So we always want to get more people watching this, and we encourage more people to get others involved. And you're going to see through today how some of that can impact other people. And so getting right into this show, I've got a few people with me from Carry the Load going way back, and they're part of an aspect of Carry the Load that not a lot of people are aware of. And it's referred to as our national relay. And the people that I have here that I'm going to introduce in just a second, I've got Dill Driscoll, Smitty's, oh, gosh darn it, Smitty, I can't believe I'm doing this. How cool is that? I started to say Searles, and I knew that wasn't right. So Smitty Searles, and I've got Matt Fryman with me. And we're going to talk to each of them, and we're going to get them all to talk to one another as well. There's some unbelievable stories out there. So let's get right down to it. First off, Dill Driscoll, welcome to Lessons from the Front. How are you, my friend?
Fantastic. Up here in Lake Placid, New York, it's snowing. It's about 6 below outside right now. So we're up north and loving life. Got my hat on, which I always wear on Carry the Load, but I'm gonna take it off now so I can.
Oh God, you know what? I love that hat. Every time I see that hat, it just gives me goosebumps.
It's funny. It's a fun, but no, I was gonna. I got a couple quick things to say. The guy, the first week of June 2011, a guy named Jack First calls me up, and I'd met him through a creative session with the Boy Scouts. And he said, "Do you still have that little crummy airplane?" And I had a Baron. And he said, "Can you fly that down here? I need you to meet this guy, Clint Bruce and Stephen Holly," because they walked around a pond that year, 2011, and he wanted a national
White Rock Lake. Yeah.
Right. And so I showed up down there and met Clint. Stephen wasn't there. Met Clint at his facility where he has a house. He was teaching people how to protect themselves and whatnot. And I'll never forget it. Jack says, "You got 5 minutes. I want a national event." My background, of course, is doing global events, Olympic torch relays, all sorts of crazy stuff, Live Earth, Live 8. Debbie told me to mention all this stuff.
Oh, hey, don't worry. You may gloss over it.
I'm just saying.
I'm coming back to it.
Okay. So, but anyway, then that fall, Clint says, "Hey, there's this guy, Coleman Ruiz, who was a lieutenant commander, Navy SEALs, was going to retire that fall. And he said, Jack, you need to have Coleman work with Dill." And that fall, Coleman's first day of, being retired, he shows up at my office in Atlanta, and off we go on the national relay.
So wait a minute, that was the day he retired?
Yes, the day he retired.
Was the day you stepped off?
No. The day he came. Well, that was in the fall. We planned, we would step off May 1st, 2012 from West Point Cemetery. And we actually had 4 different routes the first year, but we didn't have the money to do them. We're now doing all of them 10 years later. But yeah, and unbelievable. And then the other key, the other key point of that first year was Stephen and this guy, Pryor Blackwell, shows up. It's pouring down rain in Tennessee. Middle of the night.
Rain story.
Oh God, it was raining cats and dogs. And here comes Stephen and this guy Pryor, who had it was hilarious. and they walked that entire night. Smitty, I don't know if you were there that night when they showed up. Were you there?
Yeah, you and I were walking when they showed up, and
yeah, it was crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking. It was raining as if a fire hose was pouring on you. And
Yeah, it was Forrest Gump
night.
rain. I heard it was
It
Forrest
was.
Gump rain, and I heard that Smitty, if I remember this correctly, you were wearing some really cool shoes.
I got so much grief for those my first year, but that really spoke to, we didn't know what we were doing that much. And I showed up in Vibram 5-finger toe shoes, and man, did I pay the price in blisters.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you kind of mentioned this already, Dill, and I was going to ask this in a very sarcastic way, but what made you so qualified to put something like this together?
Oh gosh. Well, I was blessed to do events all over the world for 40 years. And in 2011, we were in the process of selling our company. And I'd worked in about 80 countries. And I really don't know. I think God just said, hey, Dill, you got one more cool thing to go do. And I never thought that for 5 years I would walk like Smitty. The first 5 years, I think I walked 600 miles a year. And that was from 60, I'm 70 now. So 60 to 65 years old. And man, we have stories. Oh my gosh. You're out there, you had a route. We're very good at logistics. I wasn't a military person, but I worked all over the world where I do my events. They always call me the general. And that's my other nickname. And, it's like we get stuff done. And that's why I think Jack recognized that. And the next thing you know, and a guy named Doc Pershing is the guy that knew Smitty and all these guys. He was an emergency room doctor from up there in Wisconsin. And he lined us up with the guys. And right, Smitty, off we went. And we just, we put our heads down. We knew we had to do stuff. We knew we had to get it done. And there was never a moment in our first year that we thought we wouldn't get there.
And you're being very humble. Okay. And so, for those out there that don't know you, how many Olympic torch runs, if you will, have you coordinated and led?
We've done 20 years worth. Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I guess, whatever. But
that's why I love you, Dill.
That stuff is not carry the load is our passion. It has been for the last 10 years. And, we will, quite frankly, I'm hoping that when I drop dead, people won't go, oh, that guy did, the Olympic torch relays. They're going to go, no, this guy did carry the load for, X number, hopefully a lot more years than now. But you know what I'm saying?
I remember the first time I met you, and I showed up, and I think it was in North Carolina, obviously the East Coast relay. And I get there, and I heard all about it. And I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't you. and I was given all kinds of advance warning from Matt and from Debbie and from the likes. And then I get there and I'm like, oh my God, this guy is out of control. You had the hat on, you were just all over the place, cooking burgers for everybody. I mean, larger than life. And Dill, I got to tell you, from all of us that carry the load, your involvement has meant way more than the impact you have had on this organization and people across this country. You will never know, sir.
Well,
so from all of us to you, thank you.
Thank you very much. And, there's a couple things I do want to say real quick before my time is up. And I want to tell you the outpouring of love that came from two quick stories. One, a guy in Tennessee the first year starts emptying his wallet out. And I don't know if you were there, Smitty, but it was $100 bills were coming out of he gave me $500 on the side of the road by the time we were done. 20s, 50s, hundreds. And then the other guy was a guy named Sean McGee outside of Congress, New York, year 2 or 3.
Sure.
And it's pouring down rain, and Sean comes out. We got the bus there. Sean comes out with some pizzas. Then he comes out and, hey, come to my house. I walk down the street to his house, another pouring down rain night, and he gives me a check. I put it in my pocket. I never opened it until the next day. It was $1,000. And I'll never forget that as long as I live. And the other inspiration was this guy we met, I think year 2 or 3, was Jacob Schick, 22 kills. And he's inspired us, I think, to every day. And Matt and I and Debbie are on the phone every Tuesday at 9:30, planning, plotting, figuring out, how do we make, how do we make this thing bigger, better, good, better, best, never rest of the good is better and your better is best program. And I think Jacob is an inspiration to us all. And Todd, thank you very much for having me on the call. And I'm here and I'll be quiet from here on out.
Oh, Dill, number one, I wouldn't ask you to promise something like that because you and I both know that is a tall order. Number two, I wouldn't want you to be that quiet. So trust me, we're going to come back to you here in a minute. But next, I want to talk to you for a minute, Smitty. So you and I met, I believe, also on the East Coast Relay first, and then we spent some time on the West Coast, if memory serves me correctly. And I know that you got involved as a medic. And it was Dill obviously told us a little bit of the story. But what was it that inspired you to answer the call of, oh yeah, I'll go do that. I'll go get on a bus for 30 days on and off the bus and walk all these miles and get all these blisters. And oh, by the way, I'll take care of other people while it's out. What inspired you to do all that?
To be honest, Todd, I was tricked into it. When the position was told to us, it was, they need some paramedics. You're going to go and hang out on the RV, because the first year it was an RV, not a bus. And then you'll go back to a hotel at night. You probably won't have to do anything. It'll be a pretty cakewalk. You get to see some country. They never mentioned anything about walking. And then we got out there and it's like, how could you not become involved? And I honestly have to say that Coleman was a huge catalyst for that. Dill was a huge catalyst for that. Dill has got probably one of the most incredible can-do attitudes. And Coleman, to me, as a non-military person, really exemplifies what it means to be a military leader. And we corresponded afterwards, and I actually ended up making Coleman a knife. I make knives in my spare time, and we argued a little bit about payment. And I said, there is no way, because I just got the best leadership course I ever could have asked for, just being part of the first national relay and working underneath him. From there on out, it was the fact that Carry the Load to me really is a restoration in my faith in humanity. There's a lot of negative out there. There's a lot of negative in the media. There's a lot of negative on social media. We hear that we can't get along, we can't come together. And every year on Carry the Load, I see that's not the case. I see, people showing up from all walks of life, all religions, all colors, all races, and they're there to support and do the right thing. And that is what has kept me coming back every year.
So tell me what comes to mind when, you talked about Coleman a little bit. And by the way, you're not the first person that I heard say they got tricked into this by somebody. It was probably Clint Bruce, because he's the one that always kind of, I always hear that. But you talked about Coleman Ruiz, and you talked about the impact that he had on you from a leadership standpoint. Is there anything in particular that sticks out? Any particular story that you just kind of fall back on?
I've got two of them for you. The first, we were going into, I believe, Danville, Tennessee, and there was media waiting. One of the very few times the first year that media came out to meet us. And we were parked between a school and a daycare. And as we came up, the kids at the daycare all came running to the fence. Rather than go and focus on the media, Coleman got down on his knees, and I took a picture. I have it yet from the first year. He got down on his knees and talked to the kids and explained what we were doing, because that, that real face-to-face sharing was something that's important. The other thing that really stuck with me from the first year, and I've mentioned it on occasion, is something Coleman said, that, all these families that have lost loved ones and they struggle, but they get up every day and put one foot in front of the other. How can we not do the same? So when you have that walk that's miserable in the pouring rain, when you get hailed on, when you're tired and sore and would rather be on the bus, that thought reverberates in my head that, these families get up and they put one foot in front of the other. How can I expect to do any less?
Oh, Smitty, that's awesome. And I don't know if you can hear it, but in the background, flying overhead, there was a Blackhawk, an Army Blackhawk helo going by. And for those of you who don't know this, I am actually in McAllen, Texas, home to one of our board members and great friends, John McKay. And as you'll see in the background, what I've got here is the War Memorial, the Veterans War Memorial here in McAllen, Texas. And I'm going to use this as a great way to segue over to Matt real quick. Matt, you and I have gone through a few places like this, and what kind of, it's fitting that I'm doing this today from the road and in McAllen, Texas. Matt, what kind of things does this make you think about in your days on the National Relay?
It brings it all back. I mean, it's, those type of memorials and, the national cemeteries that we're able to visit, that's where you feel the weight and the reason of why we do what we do. There's been so many that have gone before us that have, made the ultimate sacrifice, like that memorial says right there behind you. And it's the least that, I can do, having not served, to do my best and try my hardest to carry on their legacy and honor the sacrifices that they and their families have made.
And what you just said, I hadn't even really thought about that, but all three of y'all have no military service, but yet all three of you have had such an impact on this organization. And it's a great example of, just the name itself, carry the load. The 1% carries the 99% in a lot of ways. And then carry the load is all about the 99% carrying the 1%. Matt, tell me how that's transformed you as an individual.
Oh, it has 100%. Before Carried Load, Memorial Day and just, sacrifice and service didn't have much meaning to me. But after being able to come out with Carried Load, just the first year itself, and being able to, hear so many stories and talk to so many that have served, I'm humbled at who I am, what I'm able to do, and what our country stands for. So many families have, lost husbands, fathers, sons. The list goes on. And it's just truly amazing to be able to hear those stories of sacrifice and be able to, do our part and carry them on. And, one of the things I really struggled with my first year being a civilian was I didn't really think what I was doing, just being out on the relay, was a huge deal. But being able to talk to Clint and Steven at the end of it, and they're like, you have no idea how much you taking a month out of your day to honor these people means to me and to all these families out here. And that was kind of my way of service, and I had never thought about it in those terms before.
Oh God. It's, again, the family and the community that is Carry the Load, and the involvement that y'all have, it can't be put into words of thank you. I just, because we can't say it enough. You talked a minute ago about the stories you hear out on the relays. Is there anyone in particular that comes to mind that you think is worth sharing?
Yeah, and funnily enough, it happened in Tennessee as well. I didn't realize that Dill and Smitty were going to be sharing stories from there also, but it was my very first year. So back in 2014, out on the relay, we were in between Chattanooga and Nashville, and at that point, we were just parked on the side of the road, and a gentleman drove by. He was actually on the way to visit his son, who was buried in the local cemetery. and he saw the bus, stopped by, and was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And so we told him, you know, why we were there, what we were doing, and I had the opportunity to walk with him, just myself and him, for 2 hours, to walk and talk, and we actually got to walk by the cemetery where his son was buried. And like Smitty mentioned earlier, it just put things in perspective for me. I mean, here this man was who had lost his son 3 years ago. So his son died in 2011, and he still had a smile on his face. He still put one foot in front of the other and was able to live life. And it made my problems just melt away. You know, so now I was able to talk with him, and, you know, every year whenever somebody asks me if I'm carrying, obviously the names have grown, but, you know, First Lieutenant Thomas Joseph Williams Jr. will really be the first person that I ever carried out on the relay and out as part of carried load. So, you know, it's just such a special story to myself, and, you know, just one of countless that we all have that, you know, participating in carried load and out on the relay.
You know, the way you said that a minute ago, Smitty, I loved it. It restored your faith in humanity. Did I get that correct?
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's big. That is beyond impactful. I mean, do you ever just like find yourself going, okay, well, if nothing else, I'm going to draw back on these stories that I experienced out on the relay. As bad as things may be, we're going to be okay.
Right. So my perspective on that, Todd, is I've been a paramedic for 23 years. And as I've been pretty open to sharing, I've seen thousands of things that I wish I hadn't seen, and smelled about 2,000 that I wish I hadn't smelled. And it leaves a guy pretty cynical. Like all sacrificial services, we deal with a form of PTSD. And in this case, it's more of a cumulative, but it makes a guy pretty cynical. And carry the load helps me shed that cynicism and realize that there is so much good in our country that I understand why this country's worth fighting for.
God, I love it. Smitty, I tell you what, you might have a future in speaking.
One hopes not.
So, Dill, I want to come back to you for a minute, sir. You talked about one of our good friends, Jake Schick, and he's had an impact on a lot of us. Can you go a little deeper on that? What was it about your interaction with Jake that gave you that inspiration?
Well, I think it was like this. The first time I met him, we were walking for him, and it was year 2 or 3, and I had to go over the George Washington Bridge to be for live TV to get Jacob and all those guys the PR, right? And okay. I got the hat on, I've got the flag, and the gate was closed, right? So I was like, I got to get over here. I got to do this. So there's this guy with a shopping cart. You better not do that. And I jumped the gate.
Year 2, Todd.
Oh yeah, the cops show up. Next thing you know, I got the flag, my hat, and I'm in the back of a cop car, and they're going, "What are you? You can't, you know?" And I said, "Hey, call Rescue 5. Rescue 5 is our clubhouse." And JoJo and all those guys, I said, I got to get this flag to Rescue 5. Because it's like, we got to move on, and we're going to be at Good Morning America, and I'm doing this for you, the cops, right?
Yeah, and wait a minute, hold on, because I want to remind everybody, if you haven't seen the episode with JoJo, you got to go back and watch that. His story is pretty amazing. So yeah, you already knew JoJo at this point, and you said, "Hey,
the first year, yeah." So I go, "Okay, hey." So anyway, I get in the car, they close the door, and the guy, I go, "Oh, now I'm arrested." And because once they close the door, you're arrested. And he calls up somebody, and he gets back, and then the radio, he comes back into the car. He goes, "I don't know who the hell you are, but you better run across that bridge as fast as you can and don't look back." And I got the other side, and there was a fire truck waiting for us. to escort us down frickin' Manhattan. And it's a true story. And that's how Kerry, in my opinion, that's what got Kerry Load really, the New York people embraced us because they knew we were doing it for them. And I think, in the end of the day, Smitty says, it's like, and things were tough then, 2013, whatever. And I think that, what we're creating and trying to create is to get love and all of us to respect each other again, right? In the end of the day, I think Smitty said it so well. I agree with you, Todd. He should be a speaker. It's like, we need to love each other. That's what Carry Load's about. Bring everyone together in times of need. And we've raised a lot of money, tens of millions now.
Yes.
And it's pretty cool to think about that in the end of the day. Yeah.
So, okay. So Dill, here's my question. How did you get guys like Matt Fryman roped into this? I mean, did you make him do it for class?
No, Matty was a baseball player at ABAC. And Susan and I worked with, we were deans of.
What's ABAC? Tell everybody what ABAC is.
ABAC is Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College, and it's part of the University of Georgia system. And I had been the entrepreneur in residence at UGA in Athens. And then when we sold our company, I wasn't allowed to do any marketing work. So my wife made me become, and she and I became the deans of a business school there. And Matt was one of our first students, and Matt, right? But I said, hey guys, this would be really fun. We're going to go on a bus. We're going to pay you $1,000 for the month. It's going to, it's going to be great. We had tons of beer and we'll have some cool times on this thing. And I know you're not supposed to say that now. And Debbie, I'm sorry, but we had a hell of a time, right? And we didn't drink much beer or anything, but it was amazing.
No, but that's I apologize, folks. I got some stuff going on in the background. But what you're talking about there, it's not having a beer for the sake of having a beer. Every time that happened, it was, we're going to toast. I mean, it's a way of saying to the community, this individual is not forgotten. And,
yes.
And that's, it is a very military-like thing to do. So
right, the amount of military guys and gals that we carried, those that we continue to do, is unbelievable. And I don't know how to say it any other way than we step off every 2 hours. The first beginning of the relay for the first 8 years, every 2 hours, we stepped off and either walked or rode a bike, constant, 24/7. And every time we would get the people that were there. It could be sometimes 2, sometimes 202. And we would talk about carry the load and our mission. And then what we say, carry the load. And we had videos and we would step off and we would walk. And we never, ever, ever left anyone behind. And sometimes we had, Smitty will tell you, we had some old ladies, old men, they couldn't walk 5 miles. We literally a couple times carried them, right?
Well, and I think that's what a lot of people don't know is that we went 24/7 from all the way up until 2016. We went 24/7 as well. And then finally, come 2017, we kind of just grew to where we kind of couldn't sustain it because we had to, put so much time and energy into the bigger crowds during the day. But those first, 5 or 6 years, it was a all night 24/7 thing, which it was just phenomenal. And it was such a cool thing to experience.
That's a good point.
Todd, people couldn't walk. We were at times, year 2, was it? Yeah, year 2, Smitty, when we got to Dallas and my wife thought I was going to die.
Year
Because-
2, year 3, there were a couple.
Year 2 was
Pushed yourself a little too hard.
we didn't have the people to walk.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm telling you, you walk 20 miles at 100 degrees out, you know, Todd, it was brutal. It was,
Oh, yes.
it's
But
absolutely.
not everyone being able to walk has led to some wonderful interactions. Steve Hensley, who's one of the other paramedics that comes out, he is lightly notorious for finding that little kid that's out there with their little flag that knows they're out doing something, but they don't know what, and they're exhausted. That kid is 100% going to end up on Steve Hensley's shoulders and get carried a couple miles with a smile on their face. And it's something I started doing as well. And it's a great way to that immediately puts you right beside their parent. And it's just a perfect way to strike up a conversation. And that's a huge part of what Carry the Load is. It's just that human interaction. Why are you out here? What are you doing? Who is important to you? Who are we carrying for you? And it's just been a great thing.
You know, I remember, I'll kind of interject one of the things that I remember. Matt, I think this was a couple years ago. You and I were in DC together. And, you know, we started talking about, hey, before we step off, you know, let's dedicate, let's get everybody to talk about the people that they're carrying, why they're out there. And I remember talking about, I wanted to pick somebody as close to DC as I could. And we were on the Virginia side of the Potomac. And there was a young Marine tanker that I personally dedicated that leg to. And he was one of our storyboards. And I remember it always stood out to me because when you read through the storyboard, you realized that his youngest son was born 2 months after he was killed in action. And, you know, you were talking a minute ago, Matt, about those people that are out there. And we were all talking about how important it is to walk for those folks. Well, actually, you said it best, Smitty. Their loved one can't walk anymore, and they got to get up every day, and they got to put both feet on the floor and one in front of the other. And that's what I always think about. That story of that kid's tank going off the side of a cliff and never being able to see his son born. And then I look back at you guys, no military service, but yet you served the military. And I can't say thank you enough to the impact that you guys have had to this point. And so with that being said, I want to talk about where we're going. So if I'm not mistaken, we're going to do this thing in 2021, are we not?
Absolutely.
Matt, you're leading the show at this point. Dill has handed off the torch to you. Tell us about what's going on in 2021.
Yeah, we couldn't be more excited to be able to, just get back out there on the road and be able to, see all the family and the friends that we started to develop over the years. So 2021, we're going to have all 4 of our relay routes. So we were planning on opening up our Mountain States route in 2020, but we kind of transitioned that to a virtual capacity last year. So we're super excited to be able to start in person in Minot, North Dakota, in addition to in Seattle, West Point, New York, and Minneapolis. So, I think it's just something that we all need, collectively to be able to do, is to be able to get out there, be together, still stay safe, but, do something together and in honor of, those that deserve it. First responders and military, all the same, now more than ever, deserve our thanks and our support.
That's awesome. So we are stepping off in the Dakotas. That's we're calling that our Mountain States, correct?
Correct. Yep. Mountain States route.
Okay. So Smitty, are you going to be with us again this year?
I'm actually going to be leading the Mountain States route.
Did you see what I did there?
Yes, sir. Beautiful transition.
That is awesome.
It'll be fun to explore a new route with all the challenges that come with that. But I look forward to meeting a whole bunch of new people to start a relationship with as much as I'm going to miss some of the regulars from years past.
That's awesome. That is awesome. What about you, Dill? You going to make a special appearance anywhere along the route this year?
No. I got a hall pass pretty much for the month of May. Matt and Debbie, I'm going to go, right, Matt? I'm going from West Point, the first week, West Point to DC. And then from there, we're going to figure out wherever they want me to go. And I'm hoping to get a friend of ours bought a Mercedes Sprinter, little house van thing, Smitty.
Okay.
And I think I got it for the month of May. So I'll be driving around all over the place, running it to Smitty and everybody. But I've got a hall pass for the month. My wife always said, we've been married for 22 years. She said, but really, for 10 years, we basically married 11 months a year. The month of May, I was always gone. We'll see what happens. Todd, I hope to see you.
I hope so too.
As you get to be an old man at 70, you gotta, I gotta behave, kind of be careful is what my wife says, right?
Well, yeah, be careful, but hey, be adventurous at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So I want to kind of start to take this out a little bit, and I want to talk about the impact that you feel that this has had, not just on you, but maybe your families, maybe people that are very close to you. How have you seen, and Dill, let's start with you. How have you seen this grow inside of your family? Not just how it's helped you grow as a person, but what's the impact that it's had around your house?
Wow. So, yeah, we have 6 children, and one's become a Navy SEAL since this has happened. He doesn't ever want to, I'm not going to tell you who he is, which one, because he doesn't want anyone to know, but we have a daughter, that Hadley, who the first couple years walked like a crazy person, Matt, remember? And she's living in Bali. She left home. She's in Indonesia by herself, being a digital nomad. Yeah. I don't want to tell you, my grandsons have both walked a bunch. And we always call it, when we're going somewhere, they go, Papa Dill, do not call it a military operation anymore, because that's what we call it. Hey, get off your butts, boys. We're getting up at 5 a.m. We're driving up to Atlanta. We're going to walk, but it's had a huge influence on so many people in Lake Placid. Stuart Helmsley, some of my best friends in the world. The Greenwich housewives, that 3 of their husbands were killed in 9/11, and they come every year down to New York. We call them the Greenwich housewives. Yeah, it's unbelievable, the impact. And my wife Susan, Matt knows Susan, and Smitty knows Susu. We believe in this, and we believe in the notion of make a positive difference in people's lives. And this program has done that immensely across all of our family, all of our, students. We work with the University of Georgia, top 75 athletes today, called the Georgia Lead Program. Every one of them knows about Carry the Load. I mean, it's like, this is our life. This is really, really important. And I think that's, I don't know, I sound sort of
I love what you said, though. You're talking about the impact that this has had on you. And I tried to talk about, some of the things you've done that really give you the credibility to do what you did with us. And yet you just brushed those aside. And it reminds me of, I think it was Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin was a United States Marine. And for all the acting accolades and accomplishments. There in Arlington National Cemetery, his tombstone simply reads, Lee Marvin, PFC, United States Marine Corps. And, you know, I love what you're saying, that the impact that this has had on you, that's what you want to be remembered for. And man, it just speaks to your humility. And Dill, I love you, man. You're great people.
Thank you, Todd. And I love you guys. And I would, you know, I'm on the team.
I know you are. You're never getting off.
Tell me what I, yes, as Smitty knows, tell me where I'm supposed to throw the knife, Smitty.
Don't throw the knife, Dill.
Smitty, how's this impacted your world?
So,
not just you, but others associated with you.
So I'll answer that in two facets, Todd, if that's okay.
Sure.
I had, with the Midwest Relay starting 2 years ago, it actually gave my family an incredible opportunity because one of the exchange points was a quarter mile from my house. So I had my wife, in-laws, my mom, and her husband, and every one of them got to see firsthand what Carry the Load means. And they'd heard me talk about it for years, but being able to give more people that firsthand experience. And I had coworkers that came out and walked. I even got out of line and drove one of our ambulances for a little bit so the guys in the ambulance could get out and walk a couple blocks with us. And it's being able to share that firsthand experience and get people involved and see their excitement and the realization that, you know, this is it's a powerful organization just in bringing everybody together. That has been a huge impact beyond just me. Now, selfishly, more on me, this has expanded my family exponentially. I've got my blood family, but I've also got my Carry the Load family. I have met friends that I never would have met had not for Carry the Load. We've got the Georgia contingent, some of the ABAC students over the years that still come up to Wisconsin and visit on occasion. I have a friend in Dallas, a couple friends in Dallas that I stay in touch with regularly. And if you'll permit me 3 minutes, I'll tell you a neat story.
Please.
Steve Hensley is one of our other medics and a good friend of mine. After the first year of the West Coast Relay, he was telling me about a family that he'd walked with, a brother and sister, the Schneiders. Jeff is a Marine, and his sister, and I can't think of her name for the life of me, talk about blanking in live TV, but was Navy. And she refused to go to her Navy promotion ceremony because Jeff couldn't be there to pin her new rank on. Instead, they did Carry the Load with Steve. And Steve had told me how neat they were. Fast forward a year, we're pulling out of Richardson Fire in Texas, and this little Toyota pickup comes screaming in with a guy hanging out the window going, "Don't you move, we're gonna walk with you." And we walked and talked, and it turns out it's Jeff. And we had a incredible walk, great talk. And at part of that, I said, you know, I was really excited because being a Northern guy, Chick-fil-A is not even on my radar until I did Carry the Load. And we were going to end at Walmart, and there's a Chick-fil-A right there. I hadn't had Chick-fil-A the whole relay. I was really excited. And he popped my bubble and said, "You know, it's Sunday, right?" No. Fast forward a year, Jeff shows up again at Addison Fire with Chick-fil-A he had bought the night before and warmed up that morning so I could have Chick-fil-A on a Sunday.
Oh, man.
And we just kind of connect in Dallas every year. Last year, I guess it would have been 2019, we connected. And after walking, we ended up at the Ice House, as you're wont to do on occasion. But I think for the 4 hours we sat there, we maybe had one beer, but we just sat and talked and caught up. And you know, here's someone I never would have met if not for Carry the Load, but he is for sure one of my brothers.
Well, it's funny you say that because Jeff is going to be on the program. I think this date next month. One of just the all-time great individuals, and if I know him, he's probably watching right now. So I'm sure he appreciates the shout out.
Wow.
So, well, I tell you what, Matt, why don't you kind of take us home and tell us about the same thing. How's this impacted beyond just you?
Yeah, I mean, I think like we hear so much through Care Load is it's just infectious. And what starts with just one individual, then, you bring your family member, and the same has kind of just gone through mine to where, my wife and my parents, they'll fly out to Dallas every year now to celebrate Memorial Day with Care Load. And it's even stretched to the point to where my wife's cousin and her parents now want to come. And it's just such a unique thing to be able to see, just such a special and, family and organic event. So that's been really cool to see. And then, really the second thing, so my dad served in the Air Force and never left stateside. He just kind of was more on the admin side of things. But growing up, never really even knew that he was in the military. It just wasn't discussed. And I think that's, not unusual for a lot of cases. And a little peek behind the curtain for the relay. So whenever we open a new route, I have to go test drive it just to, lay my eyes on it and see what's what. And so my dad was stationed out in Amarillo and San Antonio and stuff like that. Well, our mountain states goes through Amarillo. And again, I'm in the car for like a week straight by myself doing this. And so I gave him a call and just was telling him where I was at. And I was on the way from Amarillo to Oklahoma, I think it was. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I know where you're at." He was like, "I was stationed there." And he just got to tell me about, a little bit more about what he did while he was in the service. He checked people back in as they were coming from overseas. And I mean, he just mentioned the impact that had on them, the loss that they saw. And, it was just such a brief conversation, such a random almost, but it's so memorable for me because, Carry the Load, without it wouldn't have given me that conversation with him and, kind of opened that door back up into that part of his life that I've never really known anything about. So, like I said, it's just such a unique organization and a special event that, has something for everyone, whether it's civilian, military, first responders. I think it's the coolest thing I've ever seen, just to where we can all come together and be there for, one reason and be a positive one too at that.
Like Smitty said, it kind of restores your faith in humanity.
It really does.
Well, gentlemen, we are at that point. I could talk with you guys all night, and I look forward to that opportunity to do it again in person because you guys know you didn't serve, but yet you serve, and you're just all great Americans. We're all better knowing you, and we're all better for having you as part of this team. So, what I want to do now is just kind of sign off, and I want to thank these men, to all of you in America, because when they come through your town, you need to jump out there and join them. It is one of the neatest experiences that you'll ever have, as they just discussed. So until next time, I'm always going to remind you, always, always, always have a good answer to this question. Who are you carrying?